G'day boot campers, welcome to our first boot camp gear session. Of course, you would have picked up a kettlebell, a dead ball and a band. We're basically going to be using all of those bits of kit in today's session. Got a great little session for you today. We're going to be working a band warm-up, which is going to take us into an activation set, then onto a strength set before we get into a conditioning AMRAP at the end, utilising all three pieces of kit. I have to say, these three items are definitely my preferred favourite in terms of the gear that I use probably the most at home. Granted, I've got a pretty crazy setup at home, but when it comes to kettlebells, bands and dead balls, I'm pretty much using any one of those combinations in any regular session anyway. I love this gear, so we've got some great things in store for you guys coming up over the next couple of weeks. Anyway guys, let's get into our session. To kick things off guys, grab your band and we're going to get into a band warm-up. So guys, what we're going to do is double our band over and we're going to go from the front of the hip through to the backside. So doing our good old band circles. An easier way to do this is just to wrap the thumbs. So wrapping the thumbs in is the easiest. And then of course, getting further onto the band, holding it over, doubled over, is going to be a bit tougher. The closer your arms are together, then the harder it gets in terms of how much stretch you'll get. We're going for a set of 10 here. Really focus on keeping the arms straight, elbows locked, and also just be mindful of that posture too. Nice and tall as we take that band up and over the top from the front of the hip to the backside for a set of 10 reps. As soon as we hit that 10th rep, hold the band out in front and from there with straight arms, draw it across the chest. Nice and steady. We're not going a million miles an hour with this one. We want to get a good squeeze, drawing those shoulder blades together at the back. Working for a set of 10 reps, drawing that band right across the chest. When we hit that 10th rep, we're going to flip that band around the back, holding onto the ends. We're just going to hold that band underneath the arms. From there, we're going to press it straight out. Basically going thumbs up in this position and thumbs basically facing or palms down as we punch out. Double punch out, staying tall once again, working for a set of 10. Each exercise basically working 10s as we punch out and press out. Once we finish our 10th rep of presses, we're going to take the band down to the floor. There's two versions to this. The harder version is wrapping the band around the wrists, and the easier is stepping in. So beginners, I want you to use what we call single strand. We step in this way and pull the band up on the chest. For our regular members, place the band around the wrists, then just duck the thumbs, and this is our double strand. So we're doing a sidewalks next. Give yourself a bit of room in the house. We're going for 10 steps, so just find somewhere where you've got room to shuffle step. Now, as we shuffle step, remember, we want that distance between the feet as we go. So I'm going to move over this side a little bit. And then what we do is step without dragging your feet along the ground. We push out with the side of the feet, keeping a nice parallel foot position, working for 10, then moving back the other way for 10. Really holding nice and tight and minimizing how much we're rocking from side to side. Cool? Just once up and back for a set of 10, which will then take us into some rotations. So what I'd like you to do is to place the foot into the band. Then in a shoulder width stance, holding onto the end of the band, we rotate up, keeping the arms as straight as we can, lifting the hands to shoulder level. Working for 10 on one side, bracing and holding tight before we flip over to the other side. Same thing, shoulder width stance, rotating through. Up on the top of the band is easy. Further down the band, you're going to meet more resistance, which is going to make it that bit harder. So rotations, 10 on one side, 10 on the other. Then what I'd like you to do is to step both feet in. Nice wide stance as we go. Leaning out so we get a nice big straight line, back leg straight, and then grabbing hold of the band, we pull it back into the hip pocket. Brace and hold. This is our lunge row, working for a set of 10 reps. Really bracing as we draw that band into the hip pocket. 10 on one side before we change position. Just moving over to the other side. Make sure the back foot is flat on the ground. As I draw that band in, nice and tight. Working 10 per side. Once we finish there, standing up nice and tall, I'm going to wrap my hands or wrap the band around the wrists. Working some deadlifts next. So stepping into the band, in around about a shoulder width stance, locking in the shoulders, bum slides back, and I stand up tall. So from the side, just be mindful. We want that strong line from head to hip. Don't let the band pull and round the shoulders forwards. Pushing the hips back towards the wall behind us, working for a set of 10 reps. As soon as we finish that last rep, we're going to step into our band, working in a shoulder width stance. Band comes up onto the chest, high, nice elbows, dropping down into a squat, pressing out tall. Elbows high as I squat, pressing out at the top. Working for a set of 10 reps, which will be our last exercise. Just remember, nice tall posture, pressing out, nice and tall at the top. Set of 10, then we're going to move into our activation set. For our activation set today, we are going to be using all three bits of our equipment. To kick things off, we're going to start out with our dead ball. So just place your band and your kettlebell over to one side. Working some good mornings to begin with. So what I'd like you to do is to pick up your dead ball and place it up onto the chest. We're doing a set of 8 reps. And what we're doing is we're hugging the ball in nice and tight. You want your feet around about shoulder width. And then we're pushing back through the hips and standing up tall. So sideways on, you'll see my hips go back and my chest stays up. So not a lot of bending through the knees, keeping the elbows up as I go, holding tight as I do so. So really be mindful that whilst we're holding onto the ball, we don't want to round and drop the shoulders. We hold tight, pushing back into those hips and hammies for a set of 8 reps. Just placing the ball over to the side, we're going to work some band presses next. So grabbing your band, we're going to step in. Basically stepping in so we're right on hip width this time with our feet. Bring the band up underneath the chin. And like our squat presses in our warm-up, we're just going to press out, taking it from underneath the chin and pressing right out above the head. Working for a set of 8 reps as well. Nice and steady as we go. Last of all, we're going to work a lunge row with our kettlebell. Of course, we did do some with our band in the warm-up, but with our lunge row, working with our kettlebell, we place basically the kettlebell next to our foot. We lean out so that our chest is basically almost in front of our toes. Back leg stays nice and straight. I grab a hold of my kettlebell and I pull down and back, bracing and leaning on that front leg. I pull the kettlebell back into that hip pocket. Cool, so we're not bringing the bell or the kettlebell up towards the chest, holding onto the handle, back into the hip pocket for a set of 8 on one side before we flip over to the other side, working for a set of 8 on that side. Really bracing against that rotation that's created as I pick up that kettlebell. Cool, so once again, good mornings with our dead ball for a set of 8. Presses with our band for a set of 8, and then we've got our lunge rows also for a set of 8 per side. We're going to do 3 rounds to get us started and get us ready for our strength set. Over the coming weeks, we will be doing some prep work with our kettlebell to lead us into some more advanced programming with our kettlebells. But as we get things moving, we're just going to simplify things, take things nice and steady, and basically work on those foundations. So then when it comes to do those harder movements, then we're going to be well prepped for those movements. Needless to say, our strength set today and over the coming weeks, we will work I guess primarily with, or the large majority of that work will be done with our kettlebell. Of course, the other stuff, we're going to be utilizing all 3 bits of equipment, but in our strength set, as I said, I really want to prep us towards more of that kind of advanced stuff. So that being said, guys, this strength set, grab your kettlebell and we'll get things going. Guys, we're going to start out with some deadlifts first. When we're working kettlebell deadlifts, there's a couple of things that I want to remind you of. First one is we want basically a slightly wider than shoulder width stance, and we want to make sure that the kettlebell is back towards the heels. So at the moment, my kettlebell is slightly in front of the body, so I just need to make the adjustment so that when I look down, I'm looking at the handle, and that handle is in line with those heels. Cool? So sideways on, it looks more like this. Cool? You don't want to be doing your deadlifts with the handle in line with the toes. Cool? So that being said, we push the hips back, we reach down and we grab hold nice and tight and we stand up. Locking in those shoulders. We're working for a set of 8 reps. Now for our, I guess, regular members or those that want a little bit more advanced programming, we are going to go with one arm here. So same setup, we just drop one hand out the side, make sure that that hand is in the middle of the handle. Handle in line with the heels, shoulder locked on, we stand up tall, raising and lowering that kettlebell from the ground and moving back towards those heels each time. You will do 8 on one arm before we flip over to the other side. Breathing out at the top, in at the bottom, out of the top. So you just rebreathe at the top. Cool? Or you can do a little bit quicker in terms of cool? So regulating the breathing will just help you maintain energy levels and also work nice and solidly through the exercise. It also helps you to maintain a nice strong brace. Just be mindful. Shoulder position when we're working one arm is very important. So we're not twisted in relation to our hips. We need to stay square in relation to the hips. So when we're holding onto that kettlebell one arm, make sure that shoulder doesn't get pulled forwards. So beginners and those starting out with a kettlebell, 2 hands. For our regular members and those wanting a little bit more advanced programming, work one arm. 8 per side though. Second exercise, guys, also 8 reps. We're doing some presses, basically holding on to the sides or what we call the horns of the kettlebell. We're going to hold that kettlebell upside down, and from there, elbows in nice and close to the body, pressing the kettlebell above the head, staying nice and steady as we press for a set of 8 reps there. Cool? So just remember, elbows tucked in, don't let the elbows flare out, and we're just pressing straight up and back down to the chest again. Last of all, we're going to place our kettlebell just out in front of us. From there, we're moving into the high plank position, and we're basically doing some kettlebell taps here. So holding nice and strong, nice wide stance with the feet, and we want to basically have the distance where my arm is straight to touch the ball of the kettlebell. Reaching out, bracing through the hips. I'm working 16 or 8 per side. Cool? Reaching out. So if I was over here, then that's too close because I've got a bend in the arm. Cool? Obviously, if I'm too far back, it's going to be too hard to reach. So get it so you can just touch it, making sure that the arm is straight as I reach. If that's too hard, just move to the knees, bracing through the hips as I reach and tap. Of course, the closer the feet are together, the harder that tap gets. So we can kind of regulate and make it a little bit harder by having those feet closer together. Cool? So once again, working those deadlifts, 2 hands for 8, 1 hand for 8, 1 hand for 8 for our more advanced members. Then we move into our presses, 2 hand press for a set of 8. Then last of all, our kettlebell taps for a set of 16 or 8 per side. Last up, folks, is a little conditioning AMRAP that I've got for you. Basically, all the numbers are going to kind of stay the same as we go from round to round, and we're going to be working beginners for 8 minutes and our regular members for 14 minutes. Now, before we get into this, we are going to be using each of our bits of equipment, kettlebell, band, and our dead ball. But just be mindful, depending on where you are with your dead ball, we are going to be doing some slams. Just be mindful of the environment you're in terms of if you're on floorboards, you know, it can make the room shake. So be mindful that things can fall off the shelves. I know that sounds a bit funny, but just be mindful of that. The other thing is stay away from the hard concrete, because when we're doing slams and stuff, it can damage the dead balls if it's directly on the hard floor or the hard concrete. Also, if you are outside, ideally we don't want the dead balls on the gravel, because the more we slam the balls onto sharp stones and stuff like that, it actually pierces the ball. So just be mindful of that. What I like to do with my dead ball at home is that I'll actually use a towel. I'll get a nice big towel and I'll basically double it over and just create just a bit of a buffer. So then when I'm doing my slams, I've got my towel and I'll literally just place that underneath, and it just creates a slam pad for my dead ball. Just helps protect it and just creates a bit of longevity for that dead ball. Helps it just to, I guess, stay intact. Cool, so just be mindful of that with your dead ball, because depending on the surfaces and all that kind of stuff, you can actually shorten the life of that dead ball. And we want to keep those things around for as long as we can. Anyway, guys, let's get into it. So what we've got is 3 exercises, basically 5, 7, 9. 5 slams, 7 seated rows, and 9 squat presses. Your goal is to get as many rounds of this out as possible, and we want to hear about how you guys do with this and how many rounds you do. Let us know whether it's 8 minutes or 14, and let us know how many rounds. So to kick things off, guys, slams, moving over to the dead ball to begin with. From here, standing over the top. Don't set up with the ball in front. We want to reach down with straight arms, bring the ball onto the chest, nice and tall, slam it down onto that towel each time. Cool? So we can go a bit more rapid fire, reaching up, trying to catch that ball at the bottom, but be mindful when we do that. You want to basically think that there's a target between your feet. The more the ball's in front, the more it's going to pull you forwards and pull you out of position. Chest up, chin up as I reach down each time. A set of 5. We then move over to our band. We take a seat on the floor, kick the legs out nice and straight. We lean back at 1 o'clock and we pull the band in towards the belly. Nice tall body posture. I'll turn to the side. From here, leaning back just slightly. Don't let the body get pulled forwards, especially as you get tired. Keep the chest up. Working a set of 7 seated rows. Nice and tall, squeezing the shoulder blades together at the back between each rep. Last of all, folks, moving over to the kettlebell. We're going to pick up our kettlebell upside down, keeping it on the chest. We squat down, elbows inside the legs, then press out overhead. So nice and tall, press, working for a set of 9 reps. Use those legs and the squat to press to help minimize how much work that the arms have to do. Cool? But be mindful, we really want those elbows in, nice and close. Chest up as we squat, and shove those knees out, cool, as you go. So guys, once again, 5 slams, 7 seated rows, 9 squat presses. Let's see how many rounds of that you guys can do in our 8 or 14 minute set. To finish up, we're going to have a little stretch as a cool down. So find something to hold on to. So then either our door frame or back of a chair or something like that, we're going to grab a hold of our foot, pull our heel in towards the butt. From there, staying nice and tall, push the hips into the stretch. Nice breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, working for 30 seconds on one side before we change it over to the other side. Pulling that heel in, nice tall posture. Minimize how much that back arches. We want to keep that chest down as we pull that heel into the butt. Cool. 30 seconds one side, 30 seconds the other. Then on that door frame or wall, placing that elbow in line with the shoulder. We're going to turn away from that upright, leaning in slightly. So we're getting a nice stretch through the chest. 30 seconds on that one side before we change it out over to the other side. Once again, elbow in line with that shoulder. Then turn our way, leaning in slightly. Holding for 30 seconds, trying to regulate that breathing as well. Once we finish there, just standing up tall as we push down on the elbow. So minimize how much we're arching through the back once again. Keep that chest down as I pull that arm or elbow down, seeing how far I can get that hand down the spine. 30 seconds one side before we change it out to the other side. Once again, staying as tall as we can. Nice deep breathing as I hold. Then we'll take it down to the floor, kick those legs out nice and wide. Nice wide stance as I lean into the front, trying to get those elbows down towards the ground, keeping the toes pointed towards the ceiling so they're not tipping forwards. Leaning in. Ooh, hold and breathe. Nice steady breathing. 30 seconds before we grab the leg, leaning over to one side. If you can grab toes, pull them back. Trying to get that chest down towards the knee. 30-second hold before we move over to the other side. Same thing, grabbing that leg or trying to pull those toes back. Leaning in for a nice solid 30 seconds. Nice deep breathing. Then back into that center again. Trying to get those elbows down. Nice and steady as we go. Trying to relax as much as possible. Once we finish there, guys, just moving into the top of the push-up position. So top of the push-up. Drawing the leg through and sinking down onto that leg at the front. Keeping the hips square to the floor. Nice steady breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, holding for 30 seconds. Before we swap it out to the other side. Sinking down onto that leg at the front. Nice and relaxed. As we lean onto that leg, sinking down. Once we finish up there, 30 seconds, making our way up to our feet and give yourselves a little round of applause. Great first session, guys. Awesome bits of kit, and we're gonna do some really, really cool stuff with our dead ball, kettlebell, and band. Anyway, guys, have a cracking day, and I'll see you next time.